Ever since his debut in the comics, Spider-Man has had an endless amount of TV animated adaptations, starting with the Spider-Man 1967 series, to Spider-Man 1981, to Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, to the peak untouchable Spider-Man the animated series, man. And every time I always see this show, every time I see this Spider-Man on my TV or on my computer or on my phone, I just can't help to think that, man, we really had it all with Spider-Man the animated series. This is, in my honest opinion, one of the best comic book animated TV adaptations in history. Then we now get to Spider-Man Unlimited. Even though Spider-Man Unlimited was pretty mid, in my honest opinion, I do like the costume that Peter Parker wears in the show. Then we now get to the underrated Spider-Man the new animated series, and in my honest opinion, this show was pretty underrated. It was pretty decent, even though it only had one season. Then we now get to the second GOAT of the entire Spider-Man animated catalog, and that is Spectacular Spider-Man. And every time I think about this show,
that's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
My mouth just salivates. Every time I think about this show, my mouth starts to water, my palms get sweaty, because I'm realizing that, damn, we actually had it so good after Spider-Man the animated series. I do believe that these two shows will never be touched. I do believe that these two shows will never be topped in the entire Spider-Man catalog. Then as we go further into the 2010s, we're starting to see the quality of Spider-Man dip drastically when we reach Ultimate Spider-Man. And even though Ultimate Spider-Man had some pretty funny and entertaining scenes, Ultimate Spider-Man, in my honest opinion, was largely a big disappointment because of the potential that it could have had, but it didn't choose to go in that route. Then we now go on to, in my honest opinion, one of the worst Spider-Man shows ever in history, and that is Marvel's Spider-Man. That forgettable ass show in 2017. This show was so boring, it was so bland, it had no sauce, it had no drip, it had nothing going for it. So this show is so forgettable, and good, let's keep it that way. But now we are in 2025, man, and we have a new Spider-Man show that everybody has been watching for the last couple of weeks, and I gave my thoughts about the show. I do not like many of the decisions that the show has been making. I do not like that there is no Flash Thompson yet. I do not like that there is no Mary Jane yet. I do not like a lot of the things that they did in the show. I also do not like that they're making Spider-Man need help on every single front in every single episode. He needed help to face lesser known villains like Tarantula, like Speed Demon, like the Unicorn. He always needed Norman Osborn's help, and I don't like the trends that they're following from the MCU. Even though Iron Man isn't really a mentor to Spider-Man in this show, they're making Norman Osborn actually replace Iron Man in this role, and they're making Spider-Man always need a mentor, even though Spider-Man in the comics is not really known to having a mentor, or not really known to having someone that he really looks up to in terms of helping him fight criminals in his early life as a teenager in the 616 comics. Remember, his only real mentor, his only real idol that he looked up to in the comics was Captain America. But we are also seeing some of the decisions that they're making, like they're making Peter Parker's life in high school so bland, so boring. The only real problem that he has is his friendship with Nico and Harry Osborn are fracturing, and that really only lasts for one episode, because in episode 9 and 10 this entire problem gets resolved fast, and I'll get to that later. But that's the only real problem that Peter Parker has, you know, in his high school tenure, because he doesn't get bullied, he doesn't get berated, he doesn't get antagonized by any of his peers in the school. All of the jocks love him, the loners love him. It's just that they're all indifferent to Peter Parker. They don't really hate him because they think that Peter Parker is too snobby for everybody else, like how they did in the comics. That was why Flash Thompson was bullying Peter Parker in the comics, because he thought that Peter Parker was too good for himself to try to mingle with other people, even though Peter Parker was just lonely and he was just shy. But we're not seeing all of these things that I'm talking about. And I'm not even gonna go into the race swaps and the gender swaps that they did, like with Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn, with Dr. Kirk Connors, aka now it's Dr. Carla Connors. I'm not even gonna go in depth into all of that, and I'm also not even really gonna try to go in depth with Scorpion, because even though I do like his design in the show, him and Camilla Black, I do like their design in the show, I don't like the notion that Scorpion is a criminal gang member instead of being a private investigator hired by J. Jonah Jameson like we see in the comics, and even in Spider-Man the animated series we saw that as well. So I don't like the little things that they're changing about Spider-Man's story. Actually, the two main things that I don't like in this show is Spider-Man's origin and how Spider-Man gets his suit. The way that Spider-Man origin is handled in the show is that his origin is not due to him going into a lab in high school and accidentally getting bit by a radioactive spider. No, his origin is literally because of time slash multiversal shenanigans. Well, now we actually know that it's actually due to time and space shenanigans, because this spider that actually bit Spider-Man is actually a type spider, and this is something that we will soon actually see in episode 10. And the other thing that I don't like is that they made Harry Osborn be the one to make Spider-Man's suit. Like, they make Spider-Man in this show needing help from every single person in every single front. He needed help when he's fighting people. He needed help in even making his own suits, because Norman Osborn was the one that gave Spider-Man all of his suits, even all of the temporary suits that all failed. And that is completely different than in the comics and in other Spider-Man adaptations, because we know that Spider-Man makes his own suits almost every single time. Sure, yeah, he gets some little upgrades from some of his peers or even some of his enemies, but we know that Spider-Man, he usually makes his core makeshift suit and his core classic suit. But in the show, we don't see that. And even the 4 suits that in the comic Spider-Man had to don because he had to remove his Spider-Man identity due to Norman Osborn trying to track him down, and Norman Osborn was trying to hunt him down. We see that Spider-Man, he makes all of those suits, but in the show, Norman gives Spider-Man all of these suits from Oscorp. So this show made so many changes in the Spider-Man mythos that I'm just thinking to myself that, damn, is this really a Spider-Man show? This show, I know it's Elseworlds. I know this show is not supposed to be a main continuity Spider-Man show, but the amount of changes that they're making, like even making Mary Jane not in the show, and Flash Thompson is not in the show, and Eddie Brock is not in the show. So I'm just thinking to myself like, damn, like, where are all my Spider-Man supporting characters? Like, who are these people, in my honest opinion? And speaking of Eddie Brock, we will soon see something that will actually piss me off in episode 10, because it implies that Eddie Brock is not going to be the person that will be getting Venom in the show. It's going to be either Harry Osborn or Norman Osborn, with how the events of episode 10 unfolded. But let me stop rambling and let me actually get into what happened in episode 9, because with episode 9, we see Dr. Octopus in his prison cell, because remember, he just got arrested and he just got apprehended by Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, with the help of Sergeant Thaddeus Ross. But Dr. Octopus is in his cell, and he now gets word from a guard that someone is here to visit him. So he now gets sent to the visitation center in the jail, and we see that Norman Osborn is there to visit him, but he's not there to talk. He's just there to gloat in his face. He's there to basically boast and say, hey, I am the person that got you in prison. I am the person that is going to lock you away forever, and I'm going to tell you right now to your face that it was me that sent Tony Stark. It was me that sent Iron Man. It was me that sent Thaddeus Ross to arrest you. It was me that is ruining your life right now. And not only that, I sent my people from Oscorp to go to retrieve your mechanics, to retrieve your items, to make sure that now I will be using your items for testing. So now everything that you built, everything that you worked for is all mine right now. So this causes Dr. Octopus to go into a frenzy and to get mad and really angry, and he vowed to Norman Osborn that I'm going to be the death of you. You're going going to die because of me. But before we see that, Norman Osborn gives a hint to Dr. Octavius that we are also experimenting going into space. So after this happens, we see two things coincidentally happen at once. We see that Nico Minoru, she's walking down the street and she's just basically texting on her phone, but we also see that Lonnie Lincoln and Big Donovan and the 110th Street Gang are driving to the location where Dr. Octopus was apprehended, because remember, Norman Osborn, he is having Oscorp to go to that same location to retrieve the mechanics and the items that are from Dr. Octopus. But the tip that the Chameleon gave to Big Donovan was this location. So now Big Donovan, he plans to steal all of this tech, to steal all of these items for the 110th Street Gang. And the way that he wants to do that is that he wants to ram the police off the road. Now, remember this, because this is where my first big major problem comes up in these last two episodes, because we will soon see something that will make no sense in my honest opinion. So as the 110th Street Gang, they are trying to ram the police and they are trying to basically cause the police and the Oscorp truck to crash. We see that Lonnie Lincoln does not want this to happen. He just wants to do this in a better way, but Big Donovan, he's not listening. So when Big Donovan, he successfully actually crashes two of the police cars, and then now it just left to the Oscorp truck trying to flee away. The Oscorp truck gets rammed by one of the 110th Street Gang's cars, and this causes the truck to almost hit Nico Minoru. But before this happens, we see that Spider-Man comes in and Spider-Man saves Nico Minoru by stopping the truck. But I will say this though, I do like the suit that Spider-Man is wearing right now. It's actually looking more like the classic Spider-Man suit like we all know and love. The only thing I will criticize is that they have his front logo looking like his actual back logo. But in my honest opinion, I think this suit is actually peak, and I think this suit is actually a 9 out of 10 Spider-Man animated adaptation suit. In my honest opinion, I do think that this is one of Spider-Man's best animated suits. Let me stop rambling about Spider-Man suits and let me tell you what actually happened in this fight. So we're seeing that Spider-Man just stopped a criminal gang from nearly killing two Oscorp employees, nearly damaging the truck, and nearly killing Nico Minoru. So Spider-Man, he now saves Nico and he now brings Nico to a different location, and this is causing Nico to have an epiphany of some sorts, and this is causing Nico to realize that, damn, maybe I should not be so hard on Peter Parker, because this guy, he just saved my life and he's saving so many other people's lives, and he's just really risking his own life to do so. So Spider-Man, he now goes back into the fight and he's telling the 110th Street Gang that, look, you guys can do this. But as he's about to do that, he sees Lonnie Lincoln and he now pauses and he now asks Lonnie Lincoln, dude, what are you doing here? And when Lonnie Lincoln responds, we see another gang pull up, and that is the Scorpion Gang. And we see Scorpion and Camilla Black, they pull up and they are basically wanting to do a gang war right now in the middle of the street. So now you guys are probably wondering to yourselves, where is the police? Where are the SWAT team reinforcements? Because this entire fight was about 12 minutes long. So you would think at least the police would send some type of reinforcements or some type of backup, considering the fact that Iron Man, a well-known superhero that is a part of the Avengers, and Thaddeus Ross, a well-known person in the government and a former member of the military, you would think that there will be more reinforcements protecting this vehicle's trip from the Dr. Octopus's lab to Oscorp. But in this entire episode, we do not see that, and that makes no sense in my honest opinion, because when Spider-Man is fighting both gangs, well, not really fighting both gangs, he actually kind of joins the 110th Street Gang to fight the Scorpion Gang. But Spider-Man doesn't do that just yet, because he is actually so shocked to see that Scorpion is here, the man that almost killed him in the last episode. So Scorpion, he's beating up a lot of people, and Spider-Man does not intervene yet until he sees that Big Donovan is about to get killed by Scorpion. Scorpion was about to impale Big Donovan's skull, but Spider-Man now saves Big Donovan. But this causes Big Donovan to be a wimp and to be a wuss, so Big Donovan now runs away, leaving Lonnie Lincoln Lincoln. So Spider-Man, that's why I'm saying that he kind of joins the 110 Street Gang, because he does not apprehend the 110 Street Gang. Sure, yeah, he webbed up some members of the 110 Street Gang, but something later will confirm what I'm saying, because as they're fighting, now Scorpion, he has Spider-Man back on his radar, and he's telling Spider-Man that, oh, you want round two? So basically they're fighting, and the fight is pretty good, even though the animation is a little bit choppy. Some of the frame rates kind of look weird, you know, some of the fight scenes were a little bit laggy, but the fight was pretty good. I'll tell you this, it was a pretty good fight. But then we see that the fight is temporarily halted when Lonnie Lincoln is trying to go into the Oscorp truck to see if he can get some of the items and equipment. But when this happens, some item now knocks over, and this item in the 616 comics is a dangerous chemical called Deox-3, and Deox-3 in the comics gives Tombstone his powers. But the thing I kind of don't like about how Tombstone gets his powers and how he will soon look in season 2 is because when he gets this chemical, this dangerous chemical mixing into his lungs and his body, this gives him super strength. I like that he gets super strength because of this, but one thing that I do not like is that this chemical, this Deox-3, it causes Lonnie Lincoln's skin to start becoming an albino type skin. But in the comics, Lonnie Lincoln was born with albinism, a congenital disorder, and when he was in school, throughout in school, he was almost teased, he was almost bullied by everyone in the school, and his peers were always making fun of him. So this made him into an outcast. But then Lonnie Lincoln now actually eventually becomes the school bully, and he starts to become a big gangster in the school that he was in. He was doing a lot of crimes when he was in school due to the fact that he was an outcast from his peers because of him having albino skin. So this causes him to turn into a life of crime and become a supervillain with his strength of having superpowers. So I don't like that they kind of changed Lonnie Lincoln's aspect and his personality in that way. And I don't like that he wasn't born with albino skin. I know they're trying to go for a different route, but damn, like, this show is completely different than your regular Spider-Man mythos, in my honest opinion. But we're seeing that in this fight. Now that Lonnie Lincoln has powers, he is helping Spider-Man to fight off Scorpion. And this also ties into a problem that I have with the show, is that they never make Spider-Man beat up a villain by himself. He always needs help of some sort, whether it's someone telling him what to do in his comms and someone directing Spider-Man on what to do in a certain fight, or someone actually physically helping Spider-Man in the fight. And like, I know almost every hero needs help of some sort in their fights, even Spider-Man in the comics, but man, they never give Spider-Man a definitive and a decisive win in this show by himself, all by himself. You know, remember in the last couple of episodes, we saw him get his ass beat by Daredevil, we saw him get beat up by Scorpion. Remember, he needed help to face Unicorn, he needed help to face Speed Demon and Tarantula. All of the villains that he's coming up against, he needs help. So in this exact same fight, he needs help again, and this will continue even into episode 10. But let me keep on talking about episode 9. And in this fight, we're seeing that now Lonnie Lincoln has super strength or enhanced strength, but this doesn't really help him when Scorpion now nearly kills Lonnie Lincoln, and this causes Spider-Man to get enraged, and Spider-Man gets so mad he wants to kill Scorpion. He's beating the shit out of Scorpion. He's remembering what Norman Osborn told him, that with great power comes great respect, and the only way to be respected is to be basically feared. So Norman's words now basically seep into Spider-Man's brain, so Spider-Man now wants to kill Scorpion, but it's prevented when Lonnie Lincoln stops Spider-Man, and he now tells Spider-Man that, look, you give people hope, you give people a good optimism, you don't want to destroy that. So this causes Spider-Man to stop. The rampage is done. Spider-Man now tells Lonnie Lincoln to be safe, and Spider-Man goes away. But after this, the SWAT team reinforcements now eventually comes. But before Spider-Man goes away, Spider-Man tells Lonnie Lincoln that he has to run away to evade capture. And the thing that I don't like about this entire scene is that this fight was 12 minutes long. There were no SWAT team reinforcements, no police reinforcements. There were literally no police coming whatsoever. And I know that, there are some cases where 12 minutes will pass and the police still will not come. But if the police already know about this deal happening, if the police already know that this high grade dangerous equipment is being transported from Dr. Octopus's location to Oscorp, you would think that a more heavier police presence would have been on patrol and would have been en route around the perimeter of this location, but they weren't. This entire gang fight happened and no police came up until the end, and at the end it was already too late. The 110th Street gang already ran away. So I'm just thinking to myself that damn, that shit did not make any sense. And the other thing that did not make any sense is why didn't Spider-Man, after he defeated Scorpion and the Scorpion gang, why didn't he still continue to apprehend the 110th Street gang? Because they caused so much damage. They nearly killed a lot of people, and hell, you never know, some off-screen deaths probably happened due to the car chases. They nearly killed police officers. Why didn't Spider-Man apprehend them? I'm just like, damn, what the fuck? That is crazy, man. But after that happened, and that scene happened, we see that Spider-Man meets up with Nico Minoru, and Nico tells Spider-Man that, oh, I really should have not been so hard on you. You save people here and there. You save people left and right. I really should have sympathized with where you were coming from. But, Spider-Man and Nico did not embrace each other. And then the episode nearly ends, but before it ends, we see that Norman Osborn, he is telling the entire Oscorp that I have great news. We have finally found a way to go into space, and this goes into Norman Osborn's real plan. And his real plan is that he wants more people like Spider-Man. He wants to replicate the Spider-Man DNA by using the same spider that bit Spider-Man, and they actually gained a DNA sample from Spider-Man so that they can replicate the DNA. And he also wants to create a portal into space. So this actually goes into the next episode. Spider-Man is called into work by Norman Osborn because the project is finally finished. And when Spider-Man goes into work, his intern job, we see that Norman Osborn, he has gathered around every single person. Amadeus Cho, Asha, he has Dr. Bentley Whitman, and he has Spider-Man as well, and many other scientists. And Norman Osborn, he is basically telling everybody that, look, we have finally did it. We have finally created a portal into space because we can actually have the same powers that Thor has. We can finally have the same powers that the Avengers have. And Norman Osborn is going on this crazy rant as to why it's good to open a dimensional doorway into space. But Spider-Man has his regrets. Spider-Man has his doubts about this. He's trying to tell Norman that, look, I don't know if this is a good idea. But we see that Doctor Strange, he appears and he tells Norman that you need to stop this right now. Opening a gateway into space could cause irreparable damage. Norman Osborn responds to that by saying, you are probably the one that is causing this, because the reason why he says that is because Spider-Man, he alludes to knowing who Doctor Strange was, and he says, wait, you're the guy from the Midtown High attack. So Norman Osborn is trying to argue with Doctor Strange, saying that you caused that school to be destroyed, you caused all of these aliens to come. So as Norman Osborn tries to subdue Doctor Strange and he now actually launches the real portal, it's too late, because when he launches the portal and Doctor Strange tries to stop it, a big symbiote comes out of that portal, and this symbiote resembles the same symbiote that Spider-Man he came across in the first episode and that Doctor Strange came across in the first episode. But The thing about this entire scene is that it is a time anomaly. It is a time paradox because the events of this scene bleed into the events of episode 1, because during this fight, Doctor Strange, he and the symbiote, they are fighting and a portal opens, and that portal leads into episode 1. So basically, Spider-Man's debut is actually not supposed to happen. His origin is not supposed to happen. He was not originally intended to be bit by a radioactive bug, and Spider-Man being bit by the radioactive bug is a time paradox because that bug and this entire sequence was from the future. So this causes the status quo that this Spider-Man is resembling Miles Morales from the Across the Spider-Verse movies, that Miles Morales is a paradox of a Spider-Man. So as we are knowing this, because we are seeing the fight, we see that Spider-Man and Doctor Strange eventually defeat the symbiote by causing the symbiote to go back into the portal, and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange destroy the portal. But something happens here that I do not like, man, and this happens after the fight, because after everyone, they evacuated the entire place, we see that Norman Osborn returns to the scene. But you know, after the fight, when the portal was stopped and destroyed by Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, a little symbiote goo came out from that portal, and Norman Osborn later discovers that symbiote goo. And I don't like that, man. I'm just realizing that, damn, Eddie Brock is not gonna be in the show as the Venom. It's either gonna be Norman Osborn or Harry Osborn. I don't like this trend that the Insomniac Spider-Man made when they are trying to make Harry Osborn Venom. That was so ass in Insomniac Spider-Man 2. So when we saw that, we all collectively did not like Harry Osborn being Venom, because Venom usually in the comics is supposed to go to Eddie Brock after the symbiote is rejected by Peter Parker. So why are they trying to continue that ass trend of trying to make a member of the Osborn family become Venom before Eddie Brock? And that just is so annoying, and it's just not good in my honest opinion. I do not really like why they did that. I do not really like the fact that they are trying to erase Eddie Brock as Venom, man. They are trying to erase Flash Thompson, trying to erase Mary Jane. Spider-Man does not really feel like Spider-Man in this show, man. And we see that the episode ends where Lonnie Lincoln, you know, we're seeing that his skin is starting to become white. And, you know, that also goes into my criticism of Lonnie Lincoln not being an albino when he was born in the show, but he will later become an albino due to the chemical. This show, in my honest opinion, is still pretty mid. Even though the season finale just came, I still think this show is pretty mid because they are making so many changes. They are making so many changes from the Spider-Man mythos, and they are following the trash Spider-Man trends that the MCU set and the Insomniac Spider-Man game sent. Now, the Insomniac Spider-Man games are peak. Specifically, the first Insomniac Spider-Man game. That's a 10 out of 10 game. But the Spider-Man 2 game, in my honest opinion, is pretty mid because of the fact that Harry Osborn is Venom and not Eddie Brock. So if they're going to continue that into season 2, I think season 2 will be mid as well, because I want Eddie Brock to be Venom and to face Spider-Man, man. What's going on? Why is Marvel doing this to Spider-Man? I don't know. But I know a lot of people like this show right now, but me, I'm on the fence. Me, I'm one of the few people that don't like the show, man. That's the end of the video. I'm out. Peace.